The thing is that digital entry portal will still require you to have a passport. And the processing of a passport, if you've never done it, that thing requires certain steps. Salam, peace, hey y'all, it's the Nomad Nana. Time to get down to some of the brass tacks. Today I want to talk about passports. Now, details about what I share here are going to be specifically connected to U.S. passports, but some of the points will be similar for other countries. But this is what's happening in the world today. This is the singular document that will facilitate your entry and exit from national borders. So, even crossing between countries that are just lined up right next to each other, like in Europe or Asia or Africa, you have to process your pass from one country into another in some way and at some point. Now, there are unions like the European Union, so when I was younger, if I went into Germany, I couldn't get from Germany to any other country in Europe without processing separately, whereas now I can get into one country and that will take care of my entry into other countries in the European Union, the EU. So the thing is that at some point, if you want to leave your own country, short a period of time, this is what you're going to need. You're going to need a passport. Now, I started getting passports in 1975, and the rules have changed, and they keep changing. So today we are experiencing the implementation of sort of digital portals, places where you can just swipe your passport and get into a country because there are enough codes and chips and things that will be picked up by the security instruments of these gates, and they will be able to expedite the matter. For most countries that are using these and using them, I want to say uniformly, and by that I mean, if you apply online, giving information who you are and about your arrival, that information will then be recorded and you'll get a barcode, and that barcode will be sort of your arrival permission, and you don't have to speak to a person. So in the past, and in all the movies, they will show someone walking up to a person, with their documents in hand, and that person will physically take your document, look over it, and then they will be the ones that will let you in or not. And that has some advantages and some disadvantages. And I have experienced some of the disadvantages. So that, I feel like the digital ones work a lot faster. I have stayed in lines processing my entry to countries for as many as 90 minutes, standing up. Not a lot to do. You just got off a long plane ride. Last thing you want to do is just sort of be standing in this crawling line. So I'm really happy with the digital machines. So when I get some drawbacks, I will follow up and let you know. But for now, the thing is that digital entry portal will still require you to have a passport. And the processing of a passport, If you've never done it, I'm going to kind of stick with that with a little sidebar about, like somebody like me who renews each time. That thing requires certain steps. And I kind of want to run over them really quickly so that you will understand. First of all, if you want a U.S. passport, you must be a U.S. citizen. And the documents you need to confirm that you are a U.S. citizen, number one is your birth certificate. And this is the official birth certificate. Now, if you have never seen your birth certificate and gotten a copy of it, or you have the one that I still have the one that was made in the hospital by hand. In other words, everything was filled in a form and stamped and everything, and that's still an official passport, but a birth certificate, but you can simply send off to the court of records, and they will send you a copy of your birth certificate. So it's a good thing to have, for many reasons, but it's the most efficient way to apply for a passport is to start with your U.S. birth certificate. If you don't have it, they will let you combine other things like your U.S. Social Security card with a government-issued ID. So there's a way to get around that, but yeah, if we're going to go through the steps, we might as well go through them in what I'm saying is the most efficient way. So you start with your birth certificate, and obviously you will need to be recognized for who you are now. And so state-issued IDs. And just in case you haven't noticed, the state-issued IDs have been beefing up in the last few years. So they're less, they're more difficult to forge, and they facilitate communication of important information that's needed for security reasons, because that's the reality of the way we live in a world with borders. So you want to secure the copies that you have of certain official documents, and the official documents will have what they call a raised seal, which means that if you rub your hand across the paper, you'll feel a little bump where the seal is. If you are doing photocopies of some of those documents, that's acceptable with regard to whether you also provide other official confirmation. So the thing is that I'm not saying for sure exactly what will work. What I'm saying is the easiest way to do it is with an official birth certificate, and then you need to augment something that says, this is who I am now. The second thing that you need to do is to fill out the specific passport application form. So you're not just giving information, you're giving specific information according to that form. That form has to be, if you are online, for example, and you want to download the form, you download the form, and then you fill it out, and then you wait and sign it. Either you sign it in front of the person in the post office who will accept the document, or you sign it in front of a notary. So, they want to have someone witness that the person who filled out this form, identifying themselves as such and such or so and so, has signed, and that signature has been witnessed. And then you can send that off with your fees to one of the passport agencies, or you can take it there, depending on what city you're in. If you can go straight to the passport agencies, then you don't have to mail it, which then requires you to pay for certified mail, et cetera, et cetera. So let's just say you've gone into the passport agency, you have your forms, the signature is witnessed there. You also need a passport photo. Now, passport photos are not selfies. I have used some professional photos that I had, provided that the photo will then fit the prescription, because the photos have to be 1.5 inches square, and they have to show your full face. And in my case, I always have a jab on my documents, and yet you can't have them be too far away, can't have a t-shirt with any messaging on it. These are things that are just not allowed anymore. So you need to have on some kind of a plain shirt and or top, and you can have jewelry and stuff like that. I'm always wearing a nose ring, so it's kind of like no way around it. But these days you cannot take a passport photo with glasses. And also, just FYI, some of the machines that will digitally allow you to enter and exit a country, they're going to take your picture when you get in there. First, they're going to have you scan your passport to show that you have your official document, and that particular document has already been registered in terms of the online entry arrival requirements of that country. So they'll check that first, and then the gate will open and you go into a second gate. And at that gate, they will take a photo of who you are right now entering into their country. So this is because of the AI and facial recognition, that they can do this now electronically, and you don't have to have a person, because again, people have prejudices, and I've encountered those, particularly when I come back to the US. It's funny that I have more trouble with stuff coming into the US as a US born and citizen that, yeah, so. So once you have this document, it is good for maximum 10 years. I'm not going to talk about the fact that the kids can get a passport that's only eligible for 5 years, because they change much faster than us. But in any case, on average, it's going to be a 10-year document. Just FYI, I've never been able to go 10 years after my first passport. I have traveled so much that I literally use up all the pages. In some countries, like the one I live in, you must have a minimum of 4 totally blank pages. So blank pages have no visa markers on it, or, permits to get in. Whereas, as soon as you start going into countries, they're going to start stamping and, that kind of thing. So even though I might not have, even though they might use a page more than once, like they have more than one stamp, more than one country and everything, there's never enough of them for the number of in and outs that I do in my life. So on average, I get about 7 years, and then I have to replace it. One of the things I'm going to have shared here is the past 4 or 5 passports that I've had, which at one time I actually had all of them, and now I don't, because, life goes on and I move and storage is gone and blah, 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 but the permission to enter into other countries is granted in different numbers based on the country of your passport. So US passport can get you into a whole lot of countries without having to process and have approved a certain type of visa to enter into that country. And so people say, oh, you're going to change your citizenship because, you don't live in the US right now. I'm saying no, because the passport is just easier for me to do most of the travel that I want to do. But, you're always warned, be careful, because US passports are supposedly so desirable out there in the world of spies and stuff that I never encounter. And so, interestingly enough, when I went to Malaysia recently, I didn't realize when I unpacked in my room, in the place where we were going to be doing these courses, that I didn't have my passport with me. Because when we arrived at the resort, the hosting organization had sent 2 ladies to pick me up from the airport and take me to the resort. And they said, you don't have to get out, just, give me your passport. I'm going to check you into the hotel. Usually they need to see you, but, this is what happens when you have really nice hospitable types of countries. And so someone else could check me in, and I stayed in the car. And when she was done and she came back, she gave me back my passport, and then we took the car around to the location of my actual room in the resort. And then I got out and went in, and my usual thing is to unpack my bag. I like stuff to be in containers, so I literally, even if it's just an overnight, I literally tend to unpack. I don't like to live out of a suitcase. And by the by, I was applying for something else online, and they said that they wanted me to provide the numbers that are on my passport. And then I looked and I did not have it. And then I looked very thoroughly. And then I thought to myself, oh, do I have to process a replacement? And you can do it. I've seen it done, but it does, require some footwork. And I know that the U.S. Embassy is fully functioning, where I was. And, I thought, okay, if I have to do it, I have to do it. But I then asked the hotel, and they sent security and other concierge, mostly men, and they're looking through, my underwear drawers and behind dressers and under the bed and everything. And okay, so we have 3 other adults looking, and it's clearly not in my room. And it occurred to me that I'm the type of person, because I've literally done this before with an Uber, I'm the type of person that if I do not put my passport exactly back where I took it out for whatever longer-term reason, I am likely to do something like put it on the seat beside me and then get out and not look, put it in my lap and then stand to get out of the vehicle and not look, and it drops on the floor, et cetera, et cetera. So after I panicked because it was clearly not in my room, I then, sort of took myself back to the steps of like, when did I see it last and what did I do? And actually the last time I recall was when they passed it back. Now, the person who had signed me into the resort and given me back my passport is not the owner of the car. And so even though, the organization had contacted them and they said, I gave it back, I was still kind of hoping they would actually check more thoroughly in the vehicle, because I was sitting in the back and everybody else was in the front. And sure enough, it was on the floor in the back. So alhamdulillah, I did not have to replace my passport because I'd lost it in another country. I do keep digital copies of things like my passport and my visa to Indonesia, but yeah, the emergency processes are available. They will cost a little bit more. So on average, a new passport is about 165 US dollars, but there are other fees that are required, bringing it up to over $200. So by the time you calculate, I got to get a copy of my birth certificate, it's going to cost this, it's going to take this long, do give yourself a nice margin. In fact, you might want to take advantage of, having an extra couple $100 at a certain point to say, I'm not traveling right now, but I plan to, so I'm going to go ahead and process a passport so that I'll have it. So good luck, salams, peace. You know the drill. Support the sister on the channel. Bye.